I'm Michael Elliott. Our next guest is Linda Senigaglia, President of Royal Technology Advisors. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Hi, Michael. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. So tell me about yourself. I mean, how does your background relate to geolocation services?
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I like to describe myself as a storyteller. I think that's a great way to sum up what I've been doing over my career. I've been fortunate enough to work with very large companies involving geolocation early on in the time space. Back in early 2000, product management at Nokia, working specifically with location technology and trying to understand what the use case was for a consumer. You know, back then it was not ubiquitous, so it was a very scary topic for people. You know, like Big Brother's watching, and looking at from a market perspective how to make that a compelling product and what the potential was for it. So, you know, from there going on to work with developers in the ecosystem and that have since, over the years, become best in breed, gone on to, you know, launch their companies, take them public, be acquired, really game-changing companies and innovations. And sales, you know, of navigation platforms, software, products, services. So I really sat on all sides of the table when it comes to location, from the software itself, the mapping, the content, what types of points of interest are going to be important to people and make them feel like they want to spend money on your product.
So let's talk about game changers, since you brought that up. I mean, in respect to geolocation, what are some of these big game changers that you're seeing?
Okay, you know, it's funny. Everyone looks at it through a different lens. And for me personally, there's a couple of areas that always catch my attention when I see something in the news or when I hear about what my colleagues in the industry are doing. So first of all, we're here today talking about the Internet of Things. That is a very large topic that you hear about over the years. And one of the things with respect to the Internet of Things that I think is a big game changer is the full circle that we've come on with the convergence of technology and devices. So if you think back to the days when people carried a phone and all they did with it was make a phone call, and then they started to text, but we had cameras, we had separate navigation devices, and then people started to converge and said, oh, I'm just going to use one thing. And then now we've come full circle where people are back to having separate devices, they're taking them into the car. So from that perspective, the Internet itself of things, if you will, these products, is what's making us use everything in a more efficient way. So I see that's a big game changer now because the consumer electronics have moved into the car.
Yeah,
so now that is completely converged.
Let's talk about the car manufacturers and how you're seeing that kind of merge into there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you think about it from a core competency perspective, you know, even going back from the mobile technology side, so let's start, you know, like phones going into the cars. A lot of development houses and technology companies were focused on mobile platforms and what type of software and services to put in a mobile device. And then with the convergence going into automotive, all of that talent had to re-educate themselves and sort of become chameleon and figure out what that experience is like in the car. You know, you've got a different screen, you have to be concerned about driver distraction. So it's really been a big game changer in terms of how the car manufacturers are making money and making their cars compelling to make people want to buy them. So, you know, if you think about the purchase factors, it used to be the color of the car, the interior finish. Now people are buying cars solely based on the technology capabilities, and the Internet is allowing richer services to go into the car, broadcast information instead of just, you know, static content that's embedded in the car. You now, because of the richer bandwidth, you can have dynamic information sent in. And everyone is looking at what's possible in the car, and they're marketing it as a connected car. So it's really created a whole new category in the car market. And another sort of fallout from the Internet and the connected car concept is autonomously driven vehicles. You're hearing a lot about that here at the show. All of the major manufacturers have some version of a fully autonomous car or parking assist. Mm-hmm. You're seeing a lot of these things where the customer can opt in, and I think that's an operative concept from my perspective. You don't always want to have a full, you know, loss of control. You feel like you're opting in and saying, yes, I would like some help parking, or yes, I would like you to take over with something. And, you know, the wearables are coming into the car where you're, you know, reading biometrics. So I think those are some of the things that I'm really excited about from the game-changing perspective.
So let's talk the opposite side of that, or what are some of those potential barriers to success?
Okay, you know, and that's a great question. If you think about it in a couple of different areas, cybersecurity is another thing that always catches my attention in the news. Nobody really thinks about security as an issue in the car until they hear about a data breach or security breach somewhere out in the market, whether it's banking or, you know what I mean, any area. You know, with all of this technology going into the car, you've got cellular connectivity, you've got your apps. Think of it like your computer. I mean, people can hack in, so there's a lot of concern about how that layer is being protected from hacking, whether it's the chip manufacturers that are doing something, the middleware guys, or the OEMs. So I think that's one barrier. And then just general awareness. You know, think about this from a consumer education perspective. Do people understand what technology is in the car? Are they buying the car just because it sounds cool to have, you know, an OnStar-like service or some type of connectivity, and then never enabling it and never using it? So awareness is a potential barrier, and in some cases you're asking people to pay, so pricing is a potential barrier if it's not baked into the price of the car appropriately or bundled in such a way that the value is a clear driver for that purchase decision.
So who owns the customer experience? Does the customer own the experience? Does the manufacturer own the experience? Is it the industry trade alliances? Who owns that?
That's another fascinating topic. There's so many different schools of thought on who owns that experience, and I like to think about it from the standpoint of, wouldn't you as a application developer or a car manufacturer like to be able to design a differentiated experience and own what that's going to look like based on knowledge and a lot of, you know, awareness of distracted driving concerns, things that would be a barrier to you being able to design that. And I think that's the whole shift right there. So the government, you know, NHTSA is concerned about OEMs and technology companies taking the appropriate steps to remove what I call this cognitive overload. You know, you can only focus on so much within a nanosecond or 2 milliseconds looking away from the screen and process it appropriately. I mean, a great example I always use is traffic. When someone has live traffic in their navigation system, you know, all the different colors, the icons, that's great if you've actually got time to sit and study it. But when you're driving, you don't. You need something really simple.
So, last question. What's the future hold?
Okay, so a lot of interesting areas. If you think about the future, right, a lot of what we're seeing today is some of these, you know, futuristic autonomous cars, augmented reality, wearables sensing something about your dehydration level, facial sensors, recognitions. I think that's really going to become the norm. So you're going to see a lot of these, what they call ADAS features, you know, where the car has sensors and it's compensating for something that you aren't necessarily aware of, whether it's pedestrians walking or if there's a car coming around the corner that potentially is going to crash into you. So I really think that the things that we see today as the far out future are going to become the norm.
And how quickly?
So think about the production cycle of the vehicles. It is a few years, but the benefit and the beauty of the whole Internet of Things is that these services are deployed over the air. So this can happen much quicker.
Right. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Linda. Greatly appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.